I almost had a mental breakdown making these dresses. At one point, my dress literally caught fire. It took several weeks just to get the pattern right and multiple fittings, but would I do it again? Yes, because these are the nicest dresses that I own in my entire closet. And this pattern is gonna be perfect for a wedding dress, a prom dress, or any type of formal gown that you need for a nice event. So I'm really excited to share this pattern with you guys and see what you create. So the inspiration for my 2 Christmas dresses came from these 3 pictures, and I kind of blend them all together and then just put my own spin on it. And this is the fabric that I decided to use, a black rich velvet and then this beautiful champagne colored silk. And then I decided I also wanted to do this mesh dress that I would wear either underneath or over one of the dresses. So I started pattern making, and initially I was going to do this sort of backless, strapless dress, and then I realized that I needed that additional support with the back, even if I was going to be doing boning, because as you can see here, it was just not staying up and it looked terrible. And I was kind of surprised that it turned out that badly, because on the mannequin it looked fine, but once I put it on, I was like, I just have to start over, because I kept trying to make the paper pattern work. And with flat pattern making, no matter how many alterations you make, sometimes you just never know how exactly any of your changes are gonna look until you try it on, and it was just taking way too much time. Okay, I am now in the final fitting stage and I'm obsessed. It feels so smooth and luxurious, but it's also like really firm. Like I feel like this is really like sucking me in. It's like a corset. It's staying up on its own. And for what boobs that I do have, it's making my boobs look pretty good. So I'm really happy with the result. With just like a little bit more ironing and shaping, I could get this part to just like kind of be straight instead of bowed. It's a good pattern now at this point, and I feel confident with cutting out that super nice velvet that I bought. So yeah. So finally, after like 2 weeks of pattern making, I finished the bodice of the dress, and all I had to do left was the skirt for that black velvet dress. So the video on the left is my first draft of the skirt, which I just cut on the straight grain, and then I wasn't getting that beautiful asymmetrical ruffle that I was looking for, so I decided to do another draft of the skirt, which I cut on the bias grain, and so now I was actually ready to start cutting out my fabric. But wait, there's more! I still had to draft that mesh dress. Luckily, that one didn't take very much time, and I had it pretty much finished in less than a couple of hours. So I had to prepare some materials for my dress, such as these removable padded cups. I don't know what you call these, but I had to trim them down so that they would fit into the bodice that I was making. And then I just did like a zigzag stitch to finish that raw edge. And then I went and bought some boning so that this strapless dress would stay up on its own. And then to accentuate that beautiful crisp square bodice, I decided I would use some horsehair around the edge to keep it really stiff. For both of these dresses, I knew I was going to need to add some interfacing, and I decided I would just attach all the boning and that padded cup to the interfacing so that I wasn't having to sew through and create any unnecessary needle holes in that really nice fabric that I bought. Another reason why this project took me so long is because my sewing machine actually broke halfway through, and I had to wait a month for my new one to come, and I was so excited because I decided that it was finally time to invest in an industrial sewing machine, and it was well worth the wait. Something that's really important that you want to watch out for when you're making this dress is making sure that your boning isn't intersecting any seam lines. The same thing applies for that horsehair as well. I always like to make 2 dresses whenever I make a new pattern, just because I'm able to recognize and fix a lot of mistakes on the pattern and the sewing construction itself when I make the dress a second time. Another tip for this dress is to fit it to your body halfway through the process. It is so important if you want to make this gown look nice. If you don't care about making it look good on you, then just skip this step. So you're probably wondering how I caught my dress on fire. Well, I will tell you. I thought it would be a good idea to use a lighter to melt the fraying edges of that binding casing after it was sewn on my dress. Don't do the same thing that I did. If you're going to finish those raw fraying edges of the binding, do it before you sew it onto your dress. I was very lucky that it was just the interfacing that caught on fire, but I have put so much work into the interfacing. That's actually where all of the structure and the shape of the dress comes from. This could be totally wrong, but I think Christian Dior said once that the inside of a dress should be as beautiful as the outside. And that quote is something that just repeats in my mind whenever I'm sewing, because it is really tempting to just rush through something, because I don't always have to show you guys the inside of my projects, but I want to actually be able to wear these dresses for years to come. And I also think it's important for you to see how long something made of quality is actually going to take you to make. Anyways, after you're done making the outside of your dress, I would recommend pre-marking where you need to fold in that fabric on center back to put in your zipper. I also recommend hand basting to secure all of those layers together, especially if you have a slippery fabric, because it will really help you get a nice, clean, finished look. After I finished the silk one, I decided I would start on the mesh dress so that I could have a little break in between the next dress. And since this mesh dress was going to have a mock neck, I knew I needed some sort of closure. So I decided to use black velvet ribbon to match the black velvet dress. And then I could tie the ribbon in a bow on the back of my neck and have these long dramatic tails. The mesh dress was definitely the easiest part of this entire project. And the next one I'm going to show you, which is the black velvet one, was definitely the hardest. The reason why is because velvet is notoriously difficult to work with, but it's always so worth it. It's such a beautiful fabric. But the first time I actually worked with velvet, I didn't know that there was a nap. And if you don't know what that means either, it's basically the directional grain of velvet. If you cut your fabric in different directions, then one part of your dress might look really shiny and the other part will look deep and rich. So for the skirt, I was debating whether I should do pleats or gathers, but I decided to do pleats just because I thought they looked a little bit nicer and I liked the way that they draped more. And at this part, I was filming it to tell you to use lots of pins when I realized that my bobbin thread had run out and I didn't even sew through all those layers, and so I was unpinning all of this hard work. So here's what the dress looks like from the inside and all of those layers that I sewed together. And then on the other dress, I didn't like how far it was spreading apart down the middle, and so what I did is, instead of cutting in on center front, I decided to just basically cut a slit down, but I kept that interfacing the same so that it still provided support. And by doing that, I was able to remove a lot of layers and it kept that corner really nice and crisp. Another super important tip is to make sure you're sandwiching your velvet between a towel or using a velvet mat before ironing any part of your dress. Anyways, I was finally finished, so I attached my tags, trimmed all my thread tails, and I went out on a photo shoot. And here's some videos and pictures from that. I'm curious, which dress do you guys like more? I think I personally like the black velvet one only because the silk one turned out to be a little bit more slutty than I was planning. And I'm not trying to throw shade out there on anyone, but for me, it was just a little bit too much. Either way, I'm super excited to wear them this Christmas. I love the way that they turned out and I feel so elegant and classy. I feel like a princess. Honestly, my wedding dress wasn't even this nice. Anyways, thanks for watching.